Good morning, traders. Hope you guys are all having a great morning so far. Hope you guys had a great weekend. I'm going to be doing another video today on price action analysis of the S&P, SPY, and some of the big holders, specifically the Magnificent Seven. I'm thinking about starting a new YouTube series where I document a small account, growing it from 3,000 and wherever I bring it from now until I stop documenting that. But I plan on doing it for a while. If you guys would be interested in that, please leave a like, subscribe, be greatly appreciated. And I'll definitely consider doing that. I think it would be a very good idea. But let's get into it. So the big things I'm going to be watching on Apple for today is going to be a possible gap fill trade at 191.24. If we flip to the pre-markets, we got a pretty sizable gap so far. Let's just say we hypothetically open at 190 today. If we open at 190, you can see we got a nice, decent gap right here. Still an inside candle, but a decent gap. The level I'm going to be interested in is to see if 189.78, more specifically if 190 can hold up, because that would definitely be around this area. I just think there's a lot more confluence around 189.78, so that's why I put that level instead of 190. But what I'm going to be very curious about is in the next, let's just say 2 to 3 days, or even today, if we get a close below 188, I think there's going to be a lot more downside to Apple. But if we can get above 190.170, I think there's going to be a lot more upside, personally, is what I think. Because if we get above 190.170, then we can push 195.25. Specifically, if we get a daily close over 193 on Apple. On Microsoft, what I'm going to be watching is going to be the 374.51 gap fill. So far, pre-market, we are at bouncing off that 371.81 support level. Now let's flip back to the daily. Let's just say that we open at that support level. You can see here, you can get a nice gap fill trade at 374.51. Maybe use 371.81 as a price target. It's something that I'm considering. It depends on how the market plays out. Depends on how good the setup is. NVIDIA, I believe there is a gap fill opportunity on NVIDIA. Let me just make sure. I mean, it's a decent gap, nothing great, but if you want to take the NVIDIA gap, you could always. The reason why I don't have it highlighted and the reason I'm not watching is because NVIDIA contracts are just way too expensive for my account, so I'm not really interested in that. On Meta, what I'm going to be watching on Meta is 324.82 for the gap fill. If we continue to melt down, then that'll definitely be a high probability gap. But more the level right now I'd watch is, let's see if we can reclaim the 323 support, or we get a rejection of 323 support. Resistance. So if we get a rejection of the 323 resistance, then that's going to open the gates to 318 in the next couple of days or even today. But if we can get above 323 resistance and it turns into support, then I'd watch a gap fill trade at 324.82 for a move back down to 323. I think that it might stay range bound for now. On Amazon, what I'm going to be watching is very similar. The gap fill traded possibly at 147. It depends on if we continue to rally upwards on Amazon, because we are hitting a major support level at 145.89. If we continue to pump up, let's just say we open right here, I'm not too interested in the gap because it's not that big of a gap. The bigger the gap, the higher the probability from what I gather. But still, I'd watch Amazon. They have some pretty nice contracts on Amazon, so that's the reason why I like to watch them. But for today, for the levels, what I would really pay attention to is I would watch to see if 145.89 holds up, and then I would watch 149.26 maybe come tomorrow or Wednesday. On Tesla, what I would watch is, let's see, let me see the reason why I didn't have gap fill highlighted. Oh, that's why. So if we continue to melt down, if we could get a push downwards, rejection of the 21 EMA, then you could do a possible gap, but there's not really a gap. It's been mostly flat all morning on Tesla, so I'm not really too interested in a gap fill on Tesla. But in terms of levels, I would watch the 232, 243 zone on Google. What I'm going to be watching on Google, you possibly have a sloppy inverse head and shoulders playing out, or a triple bottom. It's not really triple bottom. It's not really a good setup there for a triple bottom, but definitely inverse head and shoulders is possible on Google. So I'd just keep that in mind. That could end up playing out, but I would say it's very low probability considering that we're below 131.41. So let's just say that we open at 131. I would watch at gap fill at 131.86, maybe target 131.41 if you want to scalp it. I've never done a gap fill trade on Google before, so I don't know how the contracts move. I would have to look at the contract chart before I get into a position like that. But maybe there's somebody out there that would benefit from that Google gap play. But in terms of levels, I'd watch 130, 128, and 131.41 on Google. On SPY, the main levels I'm going to be watching is a 459.10 gap fill trade. As you can see, pre-market, we are currently breaking below 458. We're at 457.59. So in terms of levels, I'd watch 456 and 454 on SPY today. It looks like a red day, maybe some chop. It's really hard to tell because we did overextend the 21 EMA, meaning that it was bound for a reversal right back down to the 21 EMA, but we broke below it, so that's not always the best sign. But I would let price action dictate whether you trade that or not, to the upside or downside. But those are the levels I'm going to be watching on SPY. And SPX, the gap fill level on that is going to be 45.94.63. Over on the Qs, what I'm going to be watching for the gap fill trade is 389.94. So let's just say that we open hypothetically at 388, where that puts us is, so if we open at 388, it's going to put us right here. Gap fill is going to be at 389.91. 390.50 seems to be a pretty big level. I mean, from Friday's trading, definitely was a big rejection there. And I believe on Thursday, there was a big rejection of 390.50. So that's definitely be a critical level to watch, but I'd definitely watch that gap fill trade on the Qs. And then on the actual NASDAQ, that level is going to be 14,305. So that's what I'm going to be watching on that. On AMD, what I would really be interested in, I believe there was a pattern I was looking at. So we got a nice inverse head and shoulders play now on AMD, or a triple bottom. It could be one or the other. I'd definitely be interested to see how that plays out. We're bouncing off of 119 as a major support level, so I'd watch a move upwards on AMD. Not really interested in a gap fill trade yet. I would want to push down to 119 or 120 or 119.50 before I consider a gap fill trade on AMD. And then Qualcomm, what I'm going to be doing for Qualcomm is I'm going to review them once every day, but in the afternoon. But if you guys appreciate this, please leave a like, subscribe, comments, always appreciate it. But good luck, trader.